Okay. Hey, before we continue our discussion, I want to do a disclaimer that hello, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are, evening, morning, night, wherever you are on this planet. Uh, Disclaimer of that this is a podcast that does not address nor deal with political topics, uh, identities, or anything that could be a hot button topic will not be recognized. And if you are a guest, will be asked to change the topic of which is being discussed or attempting to be discussed. If that is ignored, you will be warned. And then if it's ignored, you will be immediately dismissed because this is a learning environment and for good, productive topics of discussion. And mainly, I might get on a rant. With all that being said, let's continue where we were. So, you were saying, Julie?
I was talking about like causing chaos if it comes down to it, but mostly wanting peace. And I feel like when I go into environments and where it's like, oh man, I got like this little child that's coming out, and it's like I feel like I'm having to parent myself.
Yeah, being mindful about where we are is important because we all have this part of us that wants to come out, this non-filtered version, right? What our head thinks. And there are times when sometimes I believe and feel that it is necessary, but there's a time and a place for it, right? But when a student is learning from their master, their mentor, in a way, I think a master and a mentor hopes that that student will allow themselves to show the teachings, will allow that other part of us or that other part of which that has learned in a good way, where it might cause a bit of a stir to unsettle, or might cause something for a good discussion of topic. You okay, boys? You okay? You okay, buddy? What you get a hold of? Go get some water. Get some water. Hey, go get some water. Go get some water. Or your apple. One of the two. All right. So, yeah, I think aside from where somebody who's taught a student would like the reflection of that student, of that person, that teacher, that instructor to carry forth and give best representation and reflection of that. But also, I think if the student veers from that within reason, it's also good. Because all in all of this, we want a student to still maintain their own identity. Okay. We're just helping guide it, we're helping shape it. And in some ways, dare I say, the student changes and adopts some of that thinking. And Julie, you were saying that in this one group you're in, that you've
I met
had,
someone who was talking about a specific path, and they said, "Hey, yeah, people who are a part of it, they have they've had stuff in life where they have had a hard time with things, that things weren't always going their way, and also it was, and some things in that were out of control, out of the person's control, and also they have a tendency to want peace but get into the point where they're causing a little mischief, and kind of in how they're dealing with certain situations that maybe aren't as peaceful."
yeah, there's these shows I've been watching. They're on YouTube, right? And they talk about humans and that humans have a capacity, and I will agree with this, that we have this capacity that we do want peace. We do thrive from it. We enjoy that lack of chaos. We want to get along. And the one thing these science fiction shows or stories point out is our capacity for chaos, for great destruction, because of what we evolved from, right? You know, the evolution of humankind, of being human, that we evolved from the Neanderthal, from learning how to use tools, learning how to use weapons, right? And learning how to club each other to death with a club, with a tree branch, and learn to throw spears and rocks. So we can never totally get away from that. That's part of our nature. That's part of who we are. It's what helps define us as being human.
I think in part of that, when people are doing something that I don't think they should be doing, like, okay, when I get a spam or scam call, like, I'll
Yeah.
mess with them. I'll just say hello. I'll let them explain why they're calling before I say anything else. And then if they're a spam or scam caller, I'll just start ranting in another language and they hang up
Right,
on
right,
me.
right, right, right. See, and that is our capacity to choose for a practical reason, a good purpose of deception. Now, people go, deception, that's dishonest. But as you were saying, a scammer.
It's kind of funny, but it's kind of rude. They just hang up and then they stop
Oh, yeah.
calling.
Well, the scammer deserves to have something like that happen. You're a scammer. You're going to ask what you get for, right? You know? So you're going to ask for this deceit because you yourself are being deceptive. And so don't get upset for what you ask for. You know? And this is where in these stories I've been hearing is that human beings, we all in a way are deceptive slightly, okay? Because it is a form of self-protection. Okay. And there is a time and a place to be completely forthcoming and honest and truthful. However, what I've learned is that there is a point of self protection in this. And it's part of the survival mechanism that humans have. Because I'll go into a little bit of this here. Okay. That in these stories I've been reading, or not reading, but listening to on YouTube, is that the alien species have kept under the opinion from watching humans from afar that their capacity hasn't evolved very much, right? Hairless apes, okay, who are good for very few things and intelligence wise, we're really not very high on the scale compared to some of these aliens, right? Highly intelligent species from another world, from another universe, galaxy, right? But yet, when the human species is provoked, they show up in a way that completely catches the whole other galactic councils and galactic empires of civilizations of other worlds in a and showing up in a capacity that is unbelievable in a ship that is unlike anything that they can define, that is totally capable of annihilation. And in this, these alien species and worlds are going, this is impossible. It's because they only allowed these other worlds who see what they wanted them to see. And that in this, during these battle sequences of the story, that in this, they're going, we wanted peace. We wanted to be left alone. But you wanted to subjugate us, discount us. And all we wanted was to be left alone and to get along with everybody else in the universe. And you awoke that part of us that we are also very good at, which is war. We've grown up with it our entire lives in one form or another. We have the capacity to destroy each other, but yet choose to get along. For the most part, we have our problems, yes. But this is where that chaos you're talking about, and that where people who have had not such an easy go, which the person that said that actually had a good bit of insight, a bit of wisdom. And it's true. I would agree. Because we do get shaped by what we've experienced. And I think in this today is my point may be here of being mindful, being aware of who we are, what we are as humans. You know, I speak a lot about Jediism, right? I speak a lot about the path. I speak a lot about a couple of different codes. And that there's one thing that cannot ever be ignored. No matter what we do, no matter what we learn, is exactly where we came from and where we developed from, what we developed from. And what we learn. And there are people who have had very good lives that some could only hope for. And there are others that have had okay lives, fair lives. And there are others that haven't had such an easy go. They've been faced with challenges that would cause someone to question their own existence and how long. And in some cases, some of that has been by choice. Okay. A very small percentage. I'm not going to go into the numbers here because I don't know the numbers. But there's also another percentage in there that didn't ask for the challenges they have, things they were born with. And that when they came out of the womb, already were predisposition. So that does shape one's ideas and one's thoughts of resorting to chaos. Because in a way, their own life is chaos. Their own life is, as they grew up, chaotic. They want to reflect something that's familiar, something they can very easily resort to if need be. All right. And in some cases, I would not disagree that that might be something that's necessary. Humans, in a way, thrive in chaos. Look at our planet, right? Say you're in the Amazon or in the African Serengeti, or if you're on Mount Everest. Is there truly ever not some kind of chaos going on? So maybe one that seeks chaos on occasion is only remind us of reality. Did you ever think about it that way? There can never actually ever be total peace. Never non chaotic. But
The
one who
storm.
seeks, huh?
The storm.
The storm, yes. The storm.
That's what we're talking about.
Well, it's not necessarily the storm.
There's a storm. You can either be the storm or you can be the calm in the center of the storm.
Yes, but however, we also need it to remind us. We also need it for us to practice. Humans thrive in chaos. We're masters of it. Where do you think we learned how to be diplomatic? Where do you think we learned how to set rules, to set boundaries, and also how to deal with it? It is a great teacher. And to try to suppress that is suppressing that which makes you human. Sure, we have a great capacity to be everything and the storm, but yet also the calm breeze and even the stillness. You think about it, what is this planet? What is the universe? We are that which we grew up on, and the universe around us. We are which we were meant to be. And granted, there are those that have a chaotic way that can detach them from that completely. No fault of their own. And one has to, in a way, feel for them on that. But yet, it causes us to learn that is one of the greatest gifts of being human, our capacity to learn. Our capacity to evolve, our capacity to adapt, to adjust. And in these stories I've been listening to, that's one of the things that these captains, these admirals, all of this, when confronting the bad guy, the warlord from another civilization, okay? Because during battle, they all have this set battle plan of how they conduct battle formations, right? Much like the British, how they would have lines of riflemen, right? The bombardment line. And these other aliens get completely thrown off their game because humans fight in no set direction. It's all strategy. And it's unlike anything they've ever experienced. And once a human admiral or captain, once the human fleet has won, faces off with the bad guy, good guy scenario, upon defeat or surrender, they admit this is unlike anything we've ever experienced. And a human captain, admiral, whatever, will remind the alien we learn how to adapt. We study during, and then we learn to adapt it to our own methods of combat, to our own ways of war, which we've been raging for centuries. Remember, this is what we evolved from. We know it. Not only to adapt, but to survive. And then, of course, before either the warlord, the evil guy, either he's captured, taken into custody, or he just gets hit with a blaster from in a fatal place. And then, without question, everybody else hears, message gets around, fear the humans, or they have the capacity for great destruction, but yet, on the other flip side of that coin, also show their capacity to build, to develop, to enhance, to render aid, to defend, to protect those that are weaker, to help that other species survive. So I guess also with this is adaptability. Yep. It's some things I've heard, okay, that one part of the human species wants to make the environment to suit them, okay? But yet the other part learns to adapt to the environment they're in. But when one is caring enough and wishes to, will show that other how to adapt to the environment provided the other is willing. And wants to accept it. And go along with that being led, which then everything progresses and things are at peace. And if not, fine, go your own way, figure it out yourself. Then, when you're ready, we'll be willing to help. But we all must come to that point. But back to my other point earlier on is that when a student is speaking, you hope, or at least I hope, that the student does get a bit out of control. So that way they can learn, right? That way they can learn, oh, I shouldn't have done that. And then it's like, yeah, what did you learn? That if I do this, this happens. That if I say this, this is a possibility. Oh, so you learn consequences. You learn the true meaning of consequences, good or bad. But that is the part that human beings thrive from as well. The consequences which we experience, we adapt. We learn to think ahead by what we've experienced in the past. We learn to adjust. If not, you're destined to fail. You're destined to not go forward, go forth, learn. So, you know me, I'll get to a thought and I've got to keep going.
I
But,
was something.
well, yeah, you were talking about when you were in this group about that somebody will talk about chaos and that it stirred a thought in me about we need that on occasion. We need to be reminded. We need to learn from it. Okay. We thrive in it. Because what's this planet? What are human beings? We are the living example of chaos. Are we not?
I would assume so. I keep getting into mischief.
There's nothing wrong with that. Do you learn from it?
It's for good reason.
Well, that doesn't answer my question now, does it? As long as you learn. You know, so we are which, as I said, the earth is around us. State of calm, state of not at rest. We are everything the planet is. If you ignore something, it's going to let itself be known it's still around. It's the natural process. Kind of like in Jediism, the dark and the light. If you ignore one, the other shows its head. So you must acknowledge every aspect. Utopia is what the world is. Completely. Just how to learn to get along in it as it is. And yes, in a way, we must learn to become smarter than what is around us. How do you think we learn to get not eaten by a lion? Or to not get eaten by a saber-toothed tiger? We adapt.
Tools and
We,
strategy.
yes, strategy of life, strategy of living, strategy of evolving. Good, you caught on to that. So, and in another side of this, let me ask, are we really any better than the world around us? The world as it is? Or have we actually learned to mask what we truly are for the sake of what? Being competitive is good as long as it doesn't become destructive. But yet, some of that destruction is needed. One must tear down and destroy something to evolve from it. Alchemy. Grow from grow from something to develop and reinvent, improve, be better than what you were. Evolution. Now, normally I go on these rants that have a bit of being cynical, maybe even a bit hostile, which I won't deny. I have these tendencies. And yes, events have caused it, but the other parts of me also desire to stay calm, desire to maintain that peace. And the one thing about these shows that I watch or listen to, they're on YouTube and they've got, captions and stuff. So, yes, in a way, I'm watching them. I could burn time watching those and forget just what time it is. But I think there's a lot of lessons in those. And I've got subscriptions to a whole lot of them. Some of them come from a guy who's just trying to get along in this world, right? Or in the universe, who's just enjoys doing what he does and wants to be left alone. Maybe he's a bit grumpy. Maybe he's a bit of a misfit, right? Or maybe he's a soldier who has seen many battles, right? Either way, they all want to be left alone. But yet, they have something that by chance, circumstances, or that was put into their lives. They're going, I didn't ask for this. I didn't want it. And the person doesn't change. They still remain who they are, but they have a better understanding. But because they want this alien species around them, it's because it helps them have peace. Something that has a symbolic calmness to it. And yes, some of them end up falling in love, and others end up just being great companions, but they are the other half of each other. Okay. Which is a lot to be said. Yes, in a way, maybe they are romantic stories. All right. Call it the romantic in me. But yet they're relatable. And I think that we all gravitate towards things that are relatable to us. Okay. Which does, in a way, grant us peace, grants us calmness, right? Kind of like the fish to the water. Or maybe a wild pig that likes to get into somebody's corn crops. That pig is at peace. He's eating, he's fat and happy. Or maybe the python waiting for its next meal and hunts with great efficiency. But all that not happening, each is at peace. But on the other side, something's got to remind it of what it actually is. So, which brings up the next question. Are we so different than any of those? Or have we forgotten from where we came from? Back in those times of the Neanderthal, right? Yes, they used to club each other, but come forward from the Vikings. The Vikings assimilated into other societies for survival, to grow, to flourish. But yet the Vikings would also destroy each other too. But we're also great conquerors. But yet desired nothing but peace. But yet still had the capacity to wage vicious, brutal wars. Things that I would think would be of nightmares. And then go back to their living in their villages. Peaceful community. Solve problems through meetings of the town. And I would hope that a student would reflect all of that. Be mindful of that within themselves, of what their capacities truly are. So I don't know if this today said anything except don't forget to be human. Don't forget what it means to be human. And don't use an excuse to not be. Embrace it, live it, appreciate it, love it. So don't be afraid of what you are as a human. Now, I'm not talking about some delusional make believe. I'm talking about genuinely human, originally human, authentically human. Be that. Don't deny yourself that place. Don't deny yourself that being, because you will do yourself no good. So I'm going to leave you with this. I would say, since people are barbecuing or doing this, after the day is done, sit back and take a moment and think about yourself as just that, being human. Don't identify as anything else. No political party. Don't identify as anything other than but being human. Let your internals speak to you from where you came, what you came from as a human. I'm not talking about being in the womb now, okay? I'm not talking about biology here. Well, in a way it is, but what it is to be human. Not that's influenced, what's genuinely human. What makes a human? Who is a human? Why is it human? Anyway, everybody have a good day, good life. Take care of yourselves, love one another. Anyway, Cal Griffin out. Take care, all. Bye.